Hello and welcome to the AVRUM ROSENSWEIG show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hi, folks. Welcome to the show. My name is AVRUM ROSENSWEIG, and I'm delighted to be here. I think it's safe to say that one of the things that has helped the Jewish people survive is humor, right? And humor goes way, way back. One can even find a funny little joke in the Torah. You know, when the Jews were in the desert, they turned to Moses, and like Jackie Mason would say, they say, "What? There weren't enough graves in Egypt?" That's what people say as a joke. And then, of course, later on throughout history, you'll find a lot of humor. And what's fascinating is that there's even humor from Auschwitz, from the concentration camps. And a lot of people feel very uncomfortable with that. But I think the main point is that humor is a way of coping with things. It's a way of getting through. It's a way of looking at life and so kind of getting a kick out of it so that you can have more control over it. Now, today, my guest is Mike Benhaim, and I'm just so delighted to have him here because he is one of the funniest men in the Jewish world today. So, Mike, thanks for joining us.
Oh, great. After I saw your intro, I realized I had seen it before, but now I realized how much there was to live up to. It was like visionary. It's a lot of pressure.
Well, you're a lucky man because you're naturally humorous, and you naturally, even the way you speak, it kind of I'm waiting for a joke, and you never fail me. So I think we're okay with that.
Survival. It's a survival thing for sure.
Yeah. So
you mentioned the Torah, and I don't know if you know the Charlton Heston, Cecil B. DeMille, 10 Commandments. It's actually hilarious if you really take a look at it. Sometimes when they're turning on him after every plague, there's always one guy in the back, and I'm sure Cecil B. DeMille did this on purpose.
Yeah.
But I noticed it years later, where they'd be giving them hell for putting them in a worse situation, and then some guy at the back yells, "Stone him!" It's like randomly, and I'm not sure if it was like an extra or something. It was like, what? What's going on? And they do it. Go back and see it. You'll see several times. Stone him. Relax, buddy.
That was a big thing in the biblical days, you know?
Yeah,
stone him or make him eat molten lead.
Right. But take it easy. Like, there's got to be a buildup. Don't go right to stoning him.
Yeah, give him a chance. My God. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give a sort of a broader introduction of my guest today, Mike. And listen closely. Mike Benhaim has recently released Memoirs of a Good Jewish Boy. It's his first book, which blends humor, heart, and heritage in a captivating coming-of-age story. It's a compelling and humorous memoir that weaves together personal anecdotes, cultural identity, and the universal search for meaning. With wit and warmth, Mike takes readers on a journey through childhood with a Sephardic Jewish father and an Ashkenazi mother. Now, that's funny in of itself. The ensuing family dynamics and the trials of growing up with both tradition and modernity pulling in different directions. Told with sharp humor and poignant reflection, Memoirs of a Good Jewish Boy explores the nuances of Jewish life, the struggles of balancing expectations, and the defining moment that shape identity. Through a series of relatable and often hilarious experiences, Benhaim delivers a heartfelt narrative that will strike a chord with readers from all backgrounds. Have you always seen life through a humorous filter, through a funny filter?
I just didn't really figure out why until years later. I used to always complain about my booby and and my mother and the things they would say, and people would laugh from the very, very young age. I'd tell people these stories, and they'd laugh, and I'd go, why are they laughing? I'm not sure. I'm just telling them the stuff. But then I see it from as you grow, you back up and you see it from the outside, and you go, yeah, they're hilarious.
So when I speak, and I do a lot of public speaking, I've been doing interviews for years. If I say something that's construed as poignant or meaningful and purposeful, and I can see tears in my guest's eyes as an example. That to me is the response very often that I'm looking for. In other words, that I've touched them. Is that the same thing with humor, Mike? What do you look for in me or in the
Well, it's
audience?
so funny that you asked that, because truly, after much, I don't want to call it study, but after a lot of experience in different ways and failing as
Yeah.
well, you realize that when you think you're trying to be funny, it's never as funny as when you're just telling the
Right.
story. And that's what happened with this book, where I just said, let me just tell the stories that seem to make everyone laugh, including my psychiatrist. I once went to see a psychiatrist for a while, and he'd ask me one question. I'd go off on a 10-minute rant, and he'd start scribbling, and he would be giggling, and I'd go, sorry, does my life, is it funny to you? And,
Right.
and he's like, yes, I'm sorry, it is. It's rather amusing. I think you should write a book.
But what is your life like to you, actually? Is when you look at your life, when you're introspective, do you look at it through are you a very serious guy inside, or are you funny inside?
The thoughts that enter my head are always funny. Honestly, they're always funny. They can't always come out because it's not always the appropriate time. But yeah, I think my wife and people close to me will tell you that sometimes I get really a little too. That's probably where the humor comes from. I get too serious in it, and it's not until after that I see the humor in it.
So I know that you've had, like all of us, some personal struggles in life with your family members, people you love. Do you deal with, let's say, health issues in a humorous way, or can you?
Yeah, I have. Definitely, my wife has had some major health issues for a long time, and we try. I mean, not always. Sometimes, you're in the moment and it's horrible. But yeah, we try to. Yeah, it just comes up. It happens. You have to look at the humor in it. I can't explain it, and I don't have a good example right now because you asked about that. But as we go on, I'm sure I'll find ones where sometimes you're going. I say in my prologue, this could only happen to you. I think of things and I go, how is this? This situation is so strange, and then it becomes, that's where the humor is in it, in the fact that it's so random that if you have a 50-50 chance and it goes the other way every time, you're like, this is unbelievable, and you find humor in it.
Yeah, so you actually wrote in your book that exact line, which is people are often saying to you, Mike, this always happens to you.
My family, I have I once came to Toronto by myself by train, and I fell asleep, and I got up and I went, oh my gosh, they're stopping. I got to get out. And I got out of Guildwood. I was like 12. And I was my aunt was waiting for me at Union Station. And I was like, oh man, and they were all making fun of me when I got here.
Were you funny as a kid?
I was for some reason, I didn't know I loved making people laugh, but I didn't always know now I thought of something. My aunt, who I love her, God bless her, Tita Miriam. Okay. I was alone with her, and she was sewing and doing and ironing and doing some stuff. And I was just sitting there playing with toys. And she said, this is like 1973 or something, go upstairs and tell me what time it is. They didn't have a clock in the basement. So tell me what time it is. So I went upstairs. I came back. She didn't realize she was with a 5-year-old. So I go, it's that time. Like I gave her, she was on the floor laughing because I didn't know how to tell time. The hell did I know? I made the picture with the. She was trying to figure it out. What is it, 20 to 8? So that kind of stuff. And when they'd laugh, I'd go, oh, I guess that's funny.
Yeah. What would you have done if it was 12 o'clock? I just like that, right? Mike, you come from a Sephardic father and an Ashkenazi mother. It's two cultures that I know very well. I have a dear friend, Bert Sarfati, whom you know, right? Now that is a funny name, isn't it? Yeah, Moroccan names. I love Moroccan names. You know, funny Moroccan names.
Yeah, right? I know a lot of them.
Like what? Like what?
I'm thinking. I like Bentolila. It's not funny for everybody, but it's funny for a Canadian person. You go, hey, what's your name? Abramito Bentolila. I'm sorry, I can't. I have to. And I told you in the book, if you've read the book, Moroccans only name their kids a handful of names. They're all biblical names. And so every name has 15 well-known nicknames. Like Solomon is Soli, Salomi, Momi, Momo, right? Jacob could be Jacob, Jacques, Jacob, Jacobito, Jacob, Coco, Kobe. You know what I mean? It goes on and on.
Yes, yes. A funny name too, I think, is Bochbot.
What is well, I know them well.
That's a good name. And what I find for Moroccans too is that you guys, at least in your younger years, you use nicknames for everybody.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody's
and the nickname they became normal, even though they were highly inappropriate.
Yes. I'm not getting into that. I'm going to insult someone because some of them were nicknames that everybody answered to, and some were nicknames that they only called people behind their back. I found out later on because I didn't know that, and I said it once. I said that to someone. I said, "Hey, your dad's this thing," and they looked at me and they went, "What?"
Yes, because when they get older, they're offended by it. I think Bert was telling me someone in his shul, they used to have a name which was almost like a takeoff of gas or burp, because this guy used to burp all the time, and they would call him that like it was normal, like it was not a big deal.
How you doing?
Something like that, yeah. So, Mike, my question was, your father was Sephardic, your mother Ashkenazi. Which culture would you say is funnier?
Oh, it depends on how you look at it. The Ashkenaz have the best, that passive aggressive guilt. Like my grandmother, I always do this shtick where she didn't live with us, but she was always somehow there at like the crack of dawn. She'd just be there, and she'd start doing laundry. And if there was no laundry, she would rewash clean clothes, and if I was sleeping and she wanted me to wake up, she'd come in and not stealthily put the clothes away in the drawer. And if I didn't wake up from the first, each drawer shut would get louder until I'd be like, what's happening? And she'd go, "Oh, what, you're sleeping? Oh, I'm sorry. You go back to sleep. I'll shovel the snow. It's all right. Don't worry about me. I'm okay. I don't worry." A lot of guilt, passive aggressive. The Sephardics don't do that. It's intimidation right away. My father looks at me. I laugh at these kids who everyone has some kind of excuse for themselves now. The children, I have anxiety. I have ADHD, which I had, and they didn't have a name for it even. And I can imagine.
No, they did. They called it retarded. That's what they called it.
Among other things, that's what they call me. But again, my father ever came to my room and said, "Hey, what's up? You're not ready to go?" And I'd be like, "I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety." He'd be like, "Excuse me? If you're not in the car in 5 minutes, you're going to have a lot bigger problems than anxiety. Okay, mister? You're going to go." There were never choices. There were no, if you don't mind. It was like, "Hey, what's up? Let's go." So that was the difference. So both were funny, but I mean, for the stage, the Ashkenaz side has given me more, because the world doesn't understand Sephardic.
No. You don't think so? When you say not yet, why do you say that?
The book, I wrote a little bit about
it. The book.
That I think that there's more coming up. I think there's more. They're not going to be as Sephardic as they were in the past, right? They're all assimilated now, but there's a lot of Sephardic Jews. I mean, a lot of Moroccan and Tunisian and Algerian Jews in Israel. And they start to make their way over to America and stuff. And eventually you're going to see those characters a little.
If someone were to ask me, is Mike Benhaim Moroccan or Sephardic? Or what is he? Ashkenazi? I tell you, at first blush, I would say Mike is Moroccan. He's Sephardic. Are you Ashkenazi?
Yes, a little bit. A little bit.
How are you Ashkenazi?
Because I also like to use guilt. I like wielding guilt once in a while, but also I went to school, the same type of school that I think you went to, right? You went to...
I went to Eitz Chaim, and then I went to Yeshiva.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't. Okay, I went to like what would be Chat here. It's Herzliya in Montreal, and which is it was largely Ashkenaz when I went, and our teachers, and we were taught that way. But I always went to shul with my dad, and my family is huge. Whereas my Ashkenaz family, not so much. There's not a lot of them, obviously, for obvious reasons, right? A lot of them were, were eliminated.
Yes. So your grandmother is Abuela, and your grandmother on the Ashkenazi side is Booby?
Yeah. We actually
was that
called
confusing?
my grandparents from the Sephardic side Papa Moshe and Mama Esther.
Okay.
That was
okay. So one of the before we get into the humor side of all this stuff, I think it's appropriate to talk about the beauty of the culture that you come from, and I am really and have been for many years. I'm hooked on Sephardic culture, and most of it is from my dear friend Bert Servati. And what I love about what you guys do is when you go to synagogue, when you go to shul, it's not like the Ashkenazi. When we pray, we're like this.
No.
I was at my sister's house the other day, and my son's not very fluent in Hebrew. I told him, honey, just do, and he did, and we were all good. But in the
no fooling, there's no faith in the Sephardic synagogue.
No, because you guys say the whole thing out loud. Do you know the prayers by heart? Do you know the prayers by heart?
The what?
The prayers. Do you know
not
them by heart?
All of them, but a lot of them, and I just use the book because, again, ADHD, I might get off on somewhere else. There's parts that sort of repeat in different ways, so I use the book. But yeah, no, a lot of it is rather by heart. Yeah, by now. Yeah, I mean, we've done it.
My friend Harvey Hazen.
Of course,
do you know Harvey?
Of course, the Hazen family. Wonderful.
You know the Hazen? All the brothers. Harvey's son became a doctor, and he got married yesterday. But Harvey, you wouldn't know this about him, but he knows all the ethics of their fathers.
Because we had to do it when we were young. We each had to we had to step up and do one each week.
Exactly. Do you go to shul nowadays?
Yeah.
And do you enjoy it?
I do. We do it. I mean, they do it voluntarily. Nobody's forcing me. When I was a kid, also, I have to tell you that my father, when you're younger, it's hard, sit beside him and stay. All the kids wanted to go out and play, and we did. But as I got older, even when my father had to go for his mother's yard site, for my grandmother's yard site, he would have to go at 6 a.m. on a weekday. And he'd just say, do you want to go with me? And I'd go, yep, I'm in. And I would happily go with him. Yeah.
So were you and your dad, did you have a good relationship?
I think so, but it was a Moroccan relationship, which I shouldn't say that to all, because Bert and his father were a little different, right?
Very different.
But with me, it was more of, it was a respect. He was, you had to respect the authority, and you didn't just talk to him any which way. All right. Because there were times when you get too loose and all of a sudden your father would go, is that what? What'd you say? Oh, you better think that over, brother. Because you have to be very careful, respect all the time. But yeah, I mean, I was his first son, and therefore the one that got to my brother, sadly, born 12 years younger than me, only had my father for 6.5 years. Because otherwise he would have been even more, because my father had evolved to a certain degree by that point. But with me, I was with him for all the traditional stuff, all the holidays, Shabbat, everything, and I was expected to know and to learn.
I often look at relationships whereby the spouses come from different cultures, and when you speak about a Sephardic fellow coming together with an Ashkenazi woman, it's quite dramatic. It can be quite dramatic, and I want you to sort of to address that. Like your mother and father, what was their interaction like?
Oh, he was definitely an alpha, right? But my mother was very intelligent, spoke a bunch of she knew Spanish by the time my sister was born. She could speak fluently in Spanish. She already spoke Yiddish, Polish, Hebrew, French, English, and picked up Spanish like that. So that was good, and that probably made him happy as well. But my mother was absolutely in love with my dad. Like he was, and he was, he was the love of her life, and probably his as well. But I'm just saying there was that. He was 10 years older than her, right? Which is a thing we don't do so much nowadays, especially at that age, like 28, 18. Whoa. But you get them
Yeah.
young, you can mold them, I guess. I guess that was the attitude then, right?
Oh yes, very
But
much.
yeah, but I mean, they were always into each other. Yeah, they were. Yeah, you don't see that in every relationship. My parents were.
Well,
We'd have to leave the room sometimes. You'd go, okay.
really?
They would like start, yeah, they'd be like making out, and we'd be like, okay, this is. Can we eat dinner? Because like.
You know, my friend Rachel Mam and her both her parents are gone now, but they were both Moroccan. They bought stores next to each other down in the Royal Bank Tower. They would go down to work together. They would come back at the end of the day, and they would play cards every night with their friends. Right? And it was such a beautiful relationship. They truly loved one another, and like you said about your mom, they adored one another. You know, and I don't want to make a blanket statement, but
No,
that
it
love
works
seems
for my parents. If anything, that's
right.
the joke I make, and some people get mad at me for saying it, is that my father wanted kids at that point, 28, 18, right? You got the age difference. And my mother wanted him. Kids were like, okay, somebody I have to babysit for a while so that's why I made the joke that until my brother came along, that was the child she wanted. For us, it was like practice.
Yes.
The first two were like practice,
Who laughed more at your jokes, your mom or your dad?
Neither of them laughed at my jokes, although my mother, when I
They
was
didn't, eh?
younger, definitely when I was just saying things I didn't know were funny, yes, she would be the one to laugh. Yeah.
Right. So who made you laugh?
Oh, my aunts and my
Who did you?
uncles and my cousins. Those
Yeah.
those people showed me that I could make them laugh. I could make someone laugh, because my mother,
So when they came over, like I know the Moroccan families
a lot.
every weekend, the cousins of this to that, would they say to you in Spanish, Mike, you'll make us laugh, like things like
Or
that?
I'd just make them laugh, and then we'd keep going. Yeah. Yeah, my aunt Aliette,
Yeah, so would you do?
Zichrona livracha, used to do that, though. She used to have friends over, and she'd go, wait, hang on, let me bring my nephew here. Watch, he's gonna, and they just talk to me, and then eventually they would, or she'd ask me to do impressions of my booby.
Of your
I used to
booby.
do that when I was a kid. I always, do impressions of booby.
So would she ask you to do it in Spanish?
No,
She
she could speak to me in Spanish, but she understood English, so she'd say, "Do the booby." She'd just come up, people would be around. She'd do the booby thing. Do the booby. And I would.
And is your Spanish good?
It's pretty good. It's it depends. If I have to give a lecture, no, but if I just have to speak to my like if you drop me anywhere where they speak Spanish and I have to get by, absolutely, yeah. But it's a good question.
I wrote some lines down from your book, and I want to go through a bunch of them with you because they're fantastically funny. And my dear friend Ellie Rubenstein, who loves humor, he said, very, very insightful.
Yeah, well, I'm dying to hear this because I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
No, but Mike, I think Ellie's description of these lines is interesting because, and I'll ask you, you're the comic. When you see something going on in your home, as you did, and you look at it and you go, that's really interesting. That's an insightful thought. And then when you present it, you do so in such a way that it's comedic, but the thought can still be very insightful, right?
Okay. Yes, hopefully.
Like, when you listen to comics, some comics are just stupid. They're silly. And they'll say stuff and you say, okay, fine. But then when you listen to the smart comics, right, they are watching, they're purveyors of life.
I've been both. Both because I've tried, like I told you earlier, when you try to craft a joke, not so funny. But when it comes organically out of the situation, that's where the humor is. And it took me a long time to learn that.
Okay. So here's a few lines that I want to put by you. My Sephardic dad thought gefilte fish was a punishment. I love that. But my Ashkenazi mom served it like it was caviar.
What? No, I didn't say that, but that's good.
Did you not say that? Oh, really? I'm sorry.
No, that's not for me, but it works. It works. In fact, my father didn't mind my grandmother's gefilte fish. It looked like hell.
He didn't mind it,
but he didn't actually mind it. He certainly he was polite about it for sure. But yeah, but that
So that begs another. These I got, by the way. I got these from AI as well, and AI can make a mistake. But that begs another question.
or it might have been something
Yeah, what
I
was it?
edited. It
Maybe you
sounds like
edited it
something.
out. Well, what was the culinary direction that your mother took? That's an interesting
Even
point.
my booby learned to cook Moroccan. The Moroccan Friday night fish. That's all I call it. I don't know what they call it, but I call it the Friday night fish. I never liked it,
Yes.
but they loved it. My grandmother learned to do that style, and so did my mother. My father had 7 sisters, so they took her under their wing when she met my dad and showed her all the dafina, which is like the Moroccan cholent, orisa,
Alpina,
right?
Arisa.
All
Yes.
of that stuff. My mother
Yes.
made it, and then basically mainstream Canadian cooking after that. You know, my mom could throw together a lasagna or something, right? But yeah, she
Right.
definitely learned the meatballs, the Moroccan meatballs, all of that stuff. Yeah, she learned the Moroccan way.
What I find too, you talked about your mother having 7
My
siblings.
father had 7 siblings. My mother had 1. So my
Your father
father's
had 7
7
siblings. What
sisters taught my mother. You know, here's a woman coming in to marry their brother. So you got to learn.
you know, in the community here in Toronto, there's about 75 Isaac Oziels.
Yeah, one of them's my cousin. Also,
Of course. And the reason why is because there was a grandfather by the name of Isaac Oziel, and the grandmother had 12 children.
That's right, 13.
So they all named a son after the grandfather.
And then
right?
they named
Did that
kids.
happen? And they named their kids. Did that happen in your family
Moses.
as well?
I'm
Are there
Moses. They call me Mike, but
Yeah.
I'm Moses, and my grandfather was Moses, and my other cousin Mike Benhaim, who passed away sadly, it was Moses. And I've got Moshe in California, Moshe in Israel, my cousin Mo here. Yeah, we all had a Moses.
Do you guys still get together?
Yeah, for sure. In fact, I took my cousin Mike to Israel. I took him. We both went on an El Al flight together, but the point was he had never been to Israel. And I said, listen, he was in his 50s. I go, you got to go to Israel. Let's go together. And do you have any idea how many times you are stopped and asked for your passport in Israel, only to have 2 guys whose name is Moses Benhaim? They would just go, what's happening? Because you know it's not your father or brother, because we don't do that. So it's like he can't be your grandfather. What's going on here? Well, cousins. Let's just leave it at that. We had to explain that every time. Yeah, we all do it.
It's such a beautiful thing about the Moroccan community and the Moroccan families. Do you ever feel alone? Is that possible?
Yes, when I was growing up in Montreal, because all my family was here. But here, never. I could stop at a gas station and bump into a cousin.
Right, exactly.
Everywhere I go, yeah.
All right, I wanted to put another line out there, and hopefully you said it.
Yeah, hopefully.
I apologize for that. Growing up Jewish in Canada meant learning to say sorry in Yiddish and English before I could walk.
Yeah.
You did say that? Oh, thank God.
I did, but I don't know. I don't know if that made it in the book either. But yeah, that's a thing that I would have said. I don't know if you're getting this from AI. It could be that they took parts that I had edited out. But anyway, yeah, that makes sense.
They're still good lines, and I think the point is it's the guilt. So wait, just to be clear on this, I know there's guilt within the Ashkenazi culture. I know I live it. And is there that same guilt or a certain type of guilt within Sephardic culture?
The difference is that the Sephardic don't give you a choice. I shouldn't speak about all Sephardic. My father, there was no opportunity for guilt because you weren't being given the choice to make a decision that you then have let them down on.
Right.
For me, it was, there's no choice. You're doing it. So there's no guilt. It's more the pre-guilt action. You have to do this. This is what's expected of you.
Yes.
No, it wasn't like if I did bad in school, got a bad report card. No, that would be a whole different admonishment than it wouldn't be guilt. It would be like, how dare you?
Yeah.
I tell you that this is what I send you, and I tell you to do, and you don't do it.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
I
don't
find
find it
I found what was very interesting is as we were growing up, and this was both in Ashkenazi and Sephardic culture, that our parents didn't really teach us anything. They just sent us
like
off.
actual school stuff? No, not
They
at all.
sent you off,
That's right.
right?
And I wrote that. That's a line
Right.
from my book where I said my parents weren't involved. They had they knew I was what school I went to,
Yeah.
because they put me there. But they didn't know what the heck was going on and what's the difference, what's happening in grade 2 or what's happening in grade 6. They didn't know if there were other parents knew that at this day we're doing this thing or we're going on a field trip. Every year the grade 9s go to Israel. My father didn't even know until
Yes.
the moment in the book where he was driving carpool and everybody was talking about it. So what are they talking about? Israel trip.
Right,
What
right.
Israel trip? There's an Israel trip? My parents just didn't know. They did go to parent-teacher meeting most of the time. And I was just grateful when they didn't. But like the story I tell about camp. I went to camp for 7 summers.
Which camp?
B'nai B'rith and the Y Country Camp in Montreal, which is Y Wooden Acres. It's also a Jewish camp.
Yes.
It's the Jewish Y, right? It's the other one. And my parents never came on visiting day. Never once.
They did?
I don't even think they knew it was visiting day.
Really?
I don't even know if they were in town. They shipped us off and they were like, all right, we're free.
Was that upsetting to you that they didn't come?
Only the first time because it felt weird because kids made me feel weird. They were like, oh, your parents didn't come? Oh, they must not love you.
Right.
And then I figured it out after a while. I go, it's just not their thing. They don't have any, what do you need me to come? What am I going to, I sent you out to the country. I'm going to schlep over 2 hours to drive to see you for one and then leave. What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I get a sense that you must have been great in camp because you're so effusive. You're so out there. Were you out there as a kid?
Not that first year. That first year I was miserable because I just wasn't used to that. Remember, I grew up with a lot of cousins around me and all of a sudden I'm living in Montreal. I went to overnight camp with no one I knew.
Yeah.
No one I knew. I just went overnight. I mean, my sister was a year ahead of me in the same camp, but I didn't know they didn't send me with friends. I just went to this overnight camp, so I was miserable. But that's the story I tell about where you discover by how many times you get punched in the face, what kind of behavior is acceptable and what kind is endears you to the general public and what doesn't. And after a while, I figured out that because of my I don't know what to call it, severe dislike of being punched in the face.
Yeah.
I started to figure out, I go, wait a minute, I tried that before, got punched in the face, did it again, got punched again. Yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Right.
I'm not going to whine like that anymore. And after that in camp, I loved it.
My friend Moishe's mother said to him when he was young, she said, look, you can learn from me, and what you don't learn from me, you're going to learn from life.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And nobody's going to bail you out. Like nowadays,
No.
everybody comes to the aid of their kids.
Yeah.
If my father saw me with a black eye when he picked me up from camp, he'd go, what'd you do? What did you say?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? He'd
Yeah.
go, what? Did you give it back to the other guy at least? That might be the conversation, but it wouldn't be, I'm going to go talk to the counselors about this. He'd go, you learn.
And I'll tell you something, an extreme of that, I have many friends who went to these ultra right-wing yeshivot when they were young, and the teachers would smack them. And then the kid would come home, and what you said is true, that the parent would say, what did you do wrong? And the parent would smack them again.
Yeah, for sure. That's what would happen with me. I wasn't afraid of punishment.
Yeah.
I was a little bit afraid of punishment in the sense that if my punishment would be a slap, but it was more, I really didn't like to disappoint my dad. That's the truth. He just did whatever his training was. It was good. It was right on because I really felt bad about, it's like disappointing him.
Did he give you that look? Did he give you the eye?
And the eye he had several eyes. One where One was, of disappointment. The other one was, you better start thinking quick, because I haven't decided yet what your punishment is going to be.
Right.
And it might be grounding you, or it might be just smacking you right now. But you didn't push it. You didn't. I never.
Was your mom punitive at all? Would she punish you?
She would tell my dad.
Oh,
it was literally that wait till your wait till your father gets home thing.
Yes.
Wait till your father gets home. I'm going to tell him.
Right.
Could you wait till he gets in the door? No, I'm going out to the car to tell him. He's not even. I'm going to walk back up the steps with him while I'm telling him.
I'll walk down the street as he's driving. I started a writing club a few months ago.
Oh, cool.
And I have some very accomplished writers. Yeah, I did that because I myself want to write a book, and I thought that would be an encouraging way to do it. So I have accomplished writers in my club, and some of whom have actually literally published 8 books. Brian Prowski, 5 novels, 2 or 3 poetry books. And we talk about the process of writing. And I've learned so much about the writer, about the author, and the arduous trek that people go on when they decide to write a book. And what I found interesting about your process was, you said in a number of interviews, you talked about how in the beginning you were very formal about it, different than you had written for newspapers, which you did for. And then one day you think to yourself, you know what, man, I'm going to chill and enjoy this and let it come to me. And that's what happened.
It had to, because I was stuck on outlines. I was like, I had stuff that I had written, but everybody told me you need to have an outline. And the outline dictates where the story's going to go. And I didn't know where the story was going to go until I abandoned the outline and just went, just going to throw it out there. And sometimes, I don't know if you know, I was a DJ for a while, right? You know how I DJ'd when I first started DJing? I'd have records and I'd pull them out and a song was on and I'd go, what would be good? And I'd scroll through records, an idea would pop up and go, this would be perfect to play after this. It's the same way that this book came out. I was telling one story and realized, I got to tell that other story. And then I just found that the other story led to the other story. And in the end, it was kind of like Pulp Fiction, where nothing was in the right order. You got the beginning at the end, but that's easy to edit afterwards, right? So that's what I did. Someone had asked me how it was written. I told them it was first person ADHD. That's the.
That's great. It's a great line.
It was how it came out, just blech, and then, yeah.
So another thing I learned from my novel friends is some people would literally spend 8 hours a day writing, and other people would not. They would find an hour or two at night, more like a hobby. How did you approach it?
I started like that, and it was very bad for me because I'd go back, I'd get there and go, okay, going back to where I was yesterday. Where was I yesterday? And then I'd look at the last thing I wrote and I go, where was I going with this? I don't even. So at the end, I started writing every time it popped into my mind, on my phone, at work, at home at night. And that's when I got through most of it, was in just a few months. I poured most of that out in a few months. And then I believed I finished it and I didn't have an ending. And I sat for 3 months on it.
Right.
Until I woke up one night and said, I'm just gonna throw this down and see what it's at. And that ending was almost unedited. It was just, how do I feel? I let it simmer, the whole story in my brain, and then that ending came out, and that was pretty much a one-shot phenomenon, really.
Why did you think it was so hard to arrive at the ending?
Because it's not over, and there is no ending. And if I had to go into the next 25 years of life, that's a whole other book. The story of my wife and her illness and what we went through with that and her survival. That's a whole other story. And there's humor in it. As much as there's a lot of sadness in it, there's humor in it. But I had to simply look back at the life I had written about and say, look, what do we take from this? Where am I now? Am I still mad at my mother for not giving me money on Purim? for the school
Yeah.
carnival? No, because my
Yes.
mother has dementia and frankly is nicer now than she's ever been. Every time I see her, she's, oh my God, you look so good. You're, oh, look at you. She compliments everybody. But the truth is, it's not, there's nothing worth hanging on to there. I wasn't abused. I wasn't, I just tell these stories about, about how I was raised. I thought most of it was funny. Some people thought
Yes.
it was sadder than I thought it was. But yeah, so
Well, why is that? Why did they think that?
because the people have different parenting. Everybody knows about parenting now. They know the rules. My parents were very fluid with parenting. They just did. But my father was consistent. My mother was a little more willy-nilly, and sometimes it'd be just I don't feel like paying attention to you because I've got other. They got other problems.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to you right now. I go, nowadays people would go, no, let me give you FaceTime. Come here, Dakota. Let's, and my mother just didn't care. My mother would ignore me. I tell a story in the book where she'd be reading a book and I go, Ma, and she'd be like, she'd tilt her head like she knew she could hear me, but wasn't going to answer. She's like, and I'm going, Ma, and she's not answering. She's just going like, her head was, I think it was also a little bit of ADHD on her part where she couldn't get, she goes, I know you're there, but I'm into the book I'm reading. I can't really. So.
Was there a particular part of your history and a particular particular part of the book that really jumped out at you that you thought to yourself, man alive, if I don't write anything, I got to get this in there?
First of all, I've never told the real story of my father and how he died. And that, was a tough one because it was always in my head, but I could never get by saying it out loud. But even more importantly, that story of being in the car, my father driving carpool and that Israel trip, because I'd stopped asking my parents to go on field trips or anything because I was dealing with my mother and it was a whole different guilt trip of, what do you think money grows on trees? And I just stopped. Well, I can't listen to another speech. and I just let it go. It was, it was like that. And then my father, this happened to be a big Israel trip. I mean, we're talking like, I think it was 10, 11 weeks in Israel at the time with our school. And it happened at the end of grade 9 when we were 15 and a half, just, I didn't even tell them. I didn't even take the paper back home. It was like, there was no way I'm asking my parents now for this big Israel trip. And my father heard the kids in carpool talking about it, that there was an orientation meeting that night, and he demanded that I go. I was like, what? Huh. This worked out great. But the moment, in fact, in itself was really, really touching. To be even in the moment, which is rare, right? Usually you feel it afterwards, but I was really choked up at the time.
Why were you so choked up?
I thought there's no way. I felt as if whenever I asked for something that was big, it was like, how dare you ask that? That's so big, right? I felt like I don't deserve. I haven't done anything to deserve that reward, right? That's how I felt. I don't know. It's not my mother's fault necessarily. A little bit because she used to guilt me, but it was me, the way I felt. And so when my father looked at me and said, "What are they talking about? Israel trip? What Israel trip? And you don't want to go?" And I go, "Of course I want to go." He goes, "Well, you're going. You're going, pal." And I was.
And why do you think he said that, Mike? Why
did you think I told him how much it cost. And that offended the shit out of him, which I didn't know that, because whenever I tell my mother, "Hey, Mom, we're going on a field trip and we need $20 or something," she'd go, "Well, $20? What are you talking about? Are you crazy?" And I thought, I remember that I was playing basketball in school on the team and I needed sneakers, and those leather Nikes, I wanted a pair of those and they were $40. And I had $40 for sneakers. Are you crazy? What are you doing? What are you? Who are you? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? What are you? Something like that. So I never, everything was just a big story. So I never asked. And all of a sudden, my father was sitting there going, and he goes, "You don't want to go?" And I go, "Dad, it's like $3,000 plus." He slammed on the brakes. We all flung forward. He let the kids off, and he said, "Oh, come here. What did you just say to me?" And I went, "Well, it's like really expensive." He goes, "Do you know how much your school costs?" I go, "No, I know it's. Do you know how much it costs to send you to camp?" I go, "No, I don't really." He goes, "So since when do you tell me what things cost? You're going to Israel.
Yeah.
That's it."
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, sheesh, wow. And I just got out of the car as fast as I could, man. I go,
What was the lesson you took out of that, Mike?
well, first of all, I said that in the book. I said, he used to tell me never to give up. He hated if I gave up because something was hard. And what I did was I didn't even try. I threw up I desperately would have, I did love it, but I didn't even try. I got psyched out early on and about asking for things like that, and I just didn't. I asked for small things,
Yeah, no, I get.
but never for anything big.
Well, listen, I grew up I was born in 1960, and my parents were they were middle class, lower middle class. My father was a rabbi. And I remember that, I remember when Adidas ROM came out and Pumas at the same time, and they were $12.
I know at the time,
right? Remember that?
No, because I was young when that happened. I was like 5 or 6, but yes, I do remember those.
Yeah.
I love those shoes. Yeah, everybody. I wish I could have had. I never got those.
Right. Well, you never got them?
I got North Star. I think I had a pair of North Stars.
North Star, 4-star. I think they were 4 stars. Or four stripes.
No, two.
And I remember asking my parents. They were the 2. Right. Yeah. It is kind of embarrassing to wear them, But I remember asking my parents. I said, "Mom, Dad, I want a pair of ROMs." That was my choice, and there was no way. We just didn't have the money for it, So I understand completely. You know what I find fascinating about how you describe your book is you, of course, you describe it in humorous terms because it is very funny, but you also use the word a few minutes ago, touching, right? And I think there's sort of a juxtaposition of funny and touching within the book. Like, it's very clear that you knew you were deeply loved by your parents, right?
Never doubted that growing up. Never.
And that comes through in your description of the book, which is a really big deal. And you find that, again, from my experience, you find that in Sephardic homes, and of course you find it in Ashkenazi homes as well. But the Sephardic love, it's so effusive, right? Right? Come here, I want to love you. I want to give you a hug now, right? And it's huge. It's huge. So I think you were the benefactor of some very, very large love. Would that be accurate?
Especially, again, my father was, there was that authoritative position, but my mother was very loving when, in her own way, when she was, like, when the moment was right. But my aunts and my uncles and my cousins, who were older than me, most of my cousins, very loving. I mean, I felt like, like I had a lot around me. I definitely didn't feel like someone who was devoid of love.
Yes,
maybe
absolutely.
even too much attention.
From
the rest of the family.
And do you need that attention nowadays, or are you okay without it?
I think I'm okay without it now. That doesn't mean I don't talk a lot. I probably do, but I'm good without it. And I like my solitude sometimes too, where I never did when I was younger.
And do you actually sit down and write jokes, or do they just come
No,
to
they
you?
usually just come. But if I had done that more often, because that's the way, I had a friend I talk about in the book, Stuart Silver, who gave up med school to go to become a stand-up comedian, and he used to do that. He used to just work on his craft day and night, and I always felt like I wasn't allowed to do that. Like that had to be a side thing, a hobby. It couldn't be a career. That's, again.
But and now that you've written the book, do you see it
I
as a
see that
career?
it could have been. No, I saw it a long time ago that it could have been a career. It's harder at this age to embark on that, but I will go where it leads me. But when you're younger, especially I don't know if it's Sephardic or it's Jewish in general, they don't want you being a comedian, a writer. They want you. They want something that you're gonna come out of school, get a very good job, and have very, those kind of things. Really high floor, decent ceiling, but not unlimited like that. Not nobody wants an artist. Not in my house, anyway.
Right. Not in my house. And where is the book taking you? What is the road that you're on now?
Well, first of all, the road in writing the book and finishing the book it took me down a path of self-discovery a little bit. Some of the things I fetched about, okay, I saw the bigger picture. When I did that before, that meant you ever see those old movies where you see a picture and then you think you're looking at the person, but then as it pulls back, you realize it's their reflection in a mirror. Well, that's sort of what I went through as I wrote it. I started to see that when you pull back, not everything was being done to me. Not everything happened to me. Things happened. I just happened to be around there. A lot of them were my bad choices or just choices in general. And so I learned a lot. And if I had it to do over again, like some people would ask, or if I had to give advice to a younger me, I would say stick with it and do it like a job. Treat it like a job, not like, hey, it's fun to make people laugh. No, treat it like a job and like a career. And when you do that,
and that's what I hear from my writers. The same thing. If you want to be a really successful writer, you got to treat it like a job,
right? Like you really got to write,
and you got to write. Right, writers write. Right, Mike. What do you know about yourself now after writing the book?
Well, yeah, that's sort of what I was saying. Well, first of all, I know I can do it, right? That's a big thing because it's a daunting thing in front of you.
Huge.
And as I started that last, I'm telling you, right after I abandoned the structure, I realized, holy crap, there's a lot. This is coming. In fact, I had to hold back because I thought I was going to end up at 300 pages. I go, nobody want to read 300 pages about my life. So I probably got another book in me, and I know I can do it. But I learned that I learned to shed some of the stuff that I put into my own head based on naysayers that were around me. Like I say in the book, that I always listened to the criticism way more than the compliments.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the necessary journey. I don't know. But
yeah. Do you like
I'm
yourself?
happy with myself right now. Okay. I could lose a little weight around the midsection, but
you're a little fat, are you? Okay.
I'm actually, some people called me up afterwards and went, oh my God, that story you told, it was so sad. I go, relax, it's okay. It's like, it was sad because that's the way the story was, but I'm not sitting here going, oh, it's fine. I got it out of my system in some cases long ago, and whatever residual feelings might have lingered, I definitely got them out with this book.
Was anybody hurt? Was anybody offended?
Some people felt I was a little hard on my mother. I did, but
yes.
But yeah, I think that if you really read the book, you would see that I don't actually blame her for anything, and I don't harbor any ill feelings, and I still visit her whenever I go to Montreal to see her, and it's all good. That's the only thing. I don't think anybody else. Some people that say, "Hey, you didn't mention me." Those people, those are,
Yeah.
I didn't.
I know that your wife was instrumental in having you sort of reshape your approach to the book. What did she think of the final copy?
Oh, she's the one who pushed me to. I kept wanting to change it. Like every time I sat down, I'd go, okay, let me edit it. And she said, it's okay. It's really, really good. Now, she didn't tell me not to go back and edit. I was just afraid that if I kept going back, I would end up with something else. So I left it, and afterwards found out that there are some things that needed to be fixed. But
Yeah, you said in an interview, I don't like to read it too often because when I do, I always say to myself, "Damn, I
yeah,
would have
I would have
written that
written that different. I
differently."
mean, I
Right?
used to do it with the thing about the newspaper articles. When I wrote for the newspaper, you had sometimes I'd get a call in the morning and saying we need it for tomorrow's edition, so it's got to be by tonight. So you write it and then you read it over once and you clip a few things and send it. And there's a copy editor if you did anything terrible, and then that's it. And I would see it in the newspaper the next day and go, "Damn, I wish I would have." Right? But you didn't have that
Yes.
opportunity
Yes.
here. I had it, and that scared me. But my wife was the one who told me this. No, it's a good book. She told me to actually. I go, is it even a book? I don't know. By the time I finished it, I was like, because I didn't read it as a reader, right? I didn't
Yes.
properly
Yes.
read it. I
Exactly.
sort of
Ye-
wrote it and then went over it and a few times. So she read it and she said, "No, it's a good book. It's good."
You know, it's an interesting thing about creativity. I'm an artist, and sometimes I'll look at my art after it's finished, and I'll be so incredibly proud of it, and I'll say, "Avram, you're a good artist." And then there are other times where I look at that same piece and I'm so
Right.
humiliated by it.
I totally know what you're talking about. And I have a niece who's a born
Right?
artist. Gorgeous art,
Yes.
fantastic. And she goes through periods of, no, that's not any good. And I go, are you kidding me? But yeah, there's self-doubt.
Right. So I've been playing around with AI. Do you use
I
AI
used
at
it for
all?
the cover a little bit and then flipped. But no, I was new to it. I'd never used it before up until this.
All right. So AI is well worth using. And what I've done is I've asked AI over the last few months to write a poem about my guests. So
Well,
this
I
is an
edited
ode to my,
a large chunk of the, like for editing for formatting before I
yeah,
did through
yes,
AI, and apparently he knows me now. Chat GPT
yes. Well,
does
we're in
know
good
me.
shape here. So I want to read you the poem that AI wrote about you. It's called An
I
Ode to
can't wait to
Mike
hear this.
Benhaim. Yeah. In Montreal's embrace, young Mike did grow, a Sephardic dad, Ashkenazi mom in tow. With humor as a shield, he faced the fray of cultural clashes that shaped his way. Sephardic spiced with Ladino flair met Ashkenazi brisket, a kugel to share. One parent's warmth, the other's cool reserve. Mike danced between with the comedian's verve. Tradition tugged with Shabbat glow, yet modernity beckoned, a world to know. A bar mitzvah's chant, a hockey game's cheer, he wove them together year by year. To fit in, oh, the trials he faced in Jewish halls in Canada's wide space, a quip, a jest to make the strife of finding his place in a dual life. Family, the heart of his tale's delight, where love and chaos spark laughter's light. A mother's nag, a father's tale retold, turned poignant moments to comic gold. Once in darkness, a moment so grim, Mike found a chuckle, a spark within. A family spat, a cultural blunder. He spun to joy with comedic thunder. His entertainer's soul, a DJ's beat, shapes stories that twirl on nimble feet. From stage to page, his wit to soar in memoirs that echo forevermore. Immigrants' roots in Canada's frost, Benayem's tale counts the gain and cost. Parents' dream from lands afar, blend with his own beneath the northern star. With heartfelt pause and a witty sting, Mike crafts a song that the ages sing. Across generation, his voice does span, a Jewish boy, yet every man. Identity's quest, belonging's plea, his story speaks to you and me, not just Jewish, but human, grand. Mike's humor binds us hand in
Wow,
hand.
I'm scared now. That
Yeah,
like
you should be.
wow.
Yeah.
That they know too much about me. But okay, yeah, that's amazing.
That's what people say. That's exactly right.
Well, because I did edit,
We
yeah.
don't have a
When
lot of
I edited the ending, I told you when I did that ending, I I poured it on one shot, and then I went to edit for formatting, punctuation and all that. That's all I asked it to do.
yeah.
Then and it came back to me after that ending, and it went, oh, Mike, that's such a beautiful and touching story, and it's emotional. I'm going, holy crap, the ChatGPT is getting emotional on me. I couldn't believe it. I was
I
like,
know. There's like tears
and
coming out of the screen.
I was having
I
this
know.
conversation with ChatGPT. I was like, thank you, ChatGPT. And he's going, no, thank you, Mike. Thank you. And I'm like, holy shit. That was pretty cool. That was really cool.
It's like when I ask Alexa in the morning what time it is, and she goes, "Good morning, AVRUM. I hope you're having a nice morning." Who's this? It's bizarre. Mike, I like people to take a message out of my interviews because I'm always hoping that they're inspiring and that they can help raise people up. And I find you very deeply inspiring. I really do. I think no, God bless you. You have a terrific personality, and there's warmth within you, and then there's that humor within you. There's so many different facets, and I actually think this AI poem really was very close to who you are. And I wonder if you can wrap up the interview with a message to people who are thinking about writing. How does one dive into that?
Wow, I saw somewhere a movie where they quoted someone else who I can't even remember, where they said if a writer writes, right, like you said, like if you get up in the morning and all you can think about is writing, then you're a writer. But if you're asking me, it's the difference between saying what's on your mind and giving it a second to simmer so that you can say the right thing. Because don't we all do that where we say, oh man, I should have said that. I reacted to someone and I said something to them and I thought, that wasn't exactly what I wanted to say. So if you're a writer, the best thing I can tell you is that take those thoughts in your head, throw them onto the page, and then nobody has to see them until you like them. Right? So just get your thoughts out because it's therapeutic, regardless of whether it turns into anything or not. Just even if it's nothing but a journal.
Yeah, people say there's writing a book and then there's the first go around. Like, in other words, the real writing comes after you've got it all down, right?
And you never know what's going to come out of it. I'd written so many beginnings of books where it wasn't me. It was just, oh, here's a story about a man who's a blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, where am I going with this? And finally, when I said, just, what about this man? I'll just tell you my story about all the weird stuff that happens to me. But the truth is, unlike the stuff that comes out of my mouth, the stuff that I can put down on paper and describe just so, that's what I'm most proud of.
Can you, in part B of our conclusion, I'd like to hear from you about family too, because your family, the way you describe it, how you talk about it, oh, you were so blessed to have such beauty and warmth. What are your concluding words about a good, solid family that you came from?
You can develop relationships. I have great friends I have friends that I've been friends with for a long, long time that are like family. That's one thing. But to be able to be born where the first time you look around, you see people that know you, love you, call you by your name, get you, they don't, they get you. They're willing to accept you as you are. That's a beautiful thing. That's, and you couldn't have that even with siblings, because you're going to have sibling fights all the time, little things. But with family, with the extended family, I've got an older female cousin who does this and an older male cousin who does that. This guy loves music. This guy loves sports. And we all feel connected through our family, the love of our parents, aunts, and uncles, and whatever. And it's I am truly blessed. Thank you for noticing that. I got to be reminded of it from time to time, because if I didn't have that, it might have been a little tougher to get through some of the things that I got.
And your parents, they were proud of their boy?
Different times for different things, but yes, someone said that about my mother recently. Like, oh, you think your mother wasn't? And I go, no, my mother was proud of me. She said she was proud of me years later when I started writing, and she would see me in the newspaper, my columns. She, for some reason, was very proud of that. That was, it took her 40 years, but because everything else I could be in, I'm sorry, I know we have to wrap up, but I was in West Side Story in the play. I was Bernardo in like 1983. And I remember my mother loved the movie, and she goes, "Oh, West Side Story, I love it." And then she goes there, and everybody's like at a standing ovation, and people are going, "You're great as Bernardo." And I come to my mother in the audience. They're all crowding around me after the play. She goes, I go, "What'd you think?" She goes, "Well, you died halfway through the play. I don't know why I had to sit here with the..." And my booby jumps in and goes, "I don't even know why we had to pay full price. Everybody else's kid is in the whole play. My grandson is only in half a play." You understand? So it was like everything was downplayed until I started writing. And for some reason, my mother really, really was proud of that. She really dug that. Yeah. And
Right.
my father, I don't know. He died before, young. So hopefully he's proud of something.
So Mike, this is real conclusion, part C. Are you happy your parents were like that? Some parents are really clean about how they approach their kids, and "I love you, son. Way to go. I just embrace you for your talent." But your parents were a little bit like this,
Yeah. No, they did not play it the normal way, and I'm happy. And I think I hope that came out in the book. I am happy with the childhood I had.
Yeah.
I learned to be a little bit independent and to know I was loved, but also know where the lines were drawn. And yeah, absolutely. No complaint there.
Lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for watching and for listening. I do encourage you strongly, really, to listen to this interview very closely, because there's so much that you can take out of it. And I think one of the things is how to deal with life through humor. Another is the importance of warmth and love and embracing your children and respecting your parents for who they are. And I think that when you take a look at Mike Benhaim's work and the fact that he's published the book, trust me, that's not an easy thing to do. And I'm struggling with it myself, and I truly want to accomplish that. But it's tough. And just the fact that he went down that road and he ultimately produced this book, that's a real big deal. So be tenacious, be disciplined, know what your vision is, and enjoy it an awful lot, because writing a book can be a lot of fun. Anyways, until we meet again, thank you.
Thank you, Avram.
Oh, thank you, Mike. You did a great job.
I enjoyed it, and you're a good guy, and I love your other podcasts as well.
Thank you, Mike Benhaim. Zeigazin, as they say in Yiddish. Do you want to say something in Yiddish before we go, Mike?
Nicht gefährlich. That was the one that we used to. It's nicht gefährlich. It's not
now,
so bad. Whatever it is nicht gefährlich.
Nicht gefährlich. Now, what about in Spanish? Say something.
Escapado de mal.
What's that mean?
That's actually a Moroccan haketia thing that they used to say to me when you do something that's unexpected. What it means? Yeah. I have no idea what it means. Escape from bad. But they say it when you do something that they go, "Oh, you did something, you achieved, good for you," basically.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. Until we meet again, folks, thank you again for joining us. And